Hey there, it's me Eden. Welcome to Crossdressing Adventure Stories. Today I'm going to share with you cross-dressing adventure stories called Classmate Turned Me into a Sissy, Part 11. So, if you're new to the channel, then please consider subscribing and be a part of our inclusive community. The 6 members of the Girls Only Club gathered outside in the driveway next to Mrs. O'Connor's Plymouth Fury. It was Blake's first time outdoors dressed as Pamela, and he felt like the whole world was watching him. He saw a few children playing nearby, and he nervously kept an eye on them in case they could see through his disguise. Surveying the girls gathered around him, he felt proud to be a member of the Girls Only Club. He studied the way they moved so as to imitate them better. He adjusted the shoulder strap of his purse, copying the way that Penny held hers. He noticed that all the girls and Mrs. O'Connor were wearing blue jeans and tops, and only he was wearing a skirt and pantyhose. Oddly, it made him feel like he was more feminine than they were. "I think we can squeeze 4 of you girls in the back seat and 2 can come up front with me," Mrs. O'Connor said as she unlocked the car doors. "Pamela, you come sit in the back with Kathy, Karen and me," Amy said as she slid into the seat. Blake followed her, making sure to first sit on the seat and then swing both legs in together so as not to open up his skirt too far. Karen and Kathy then got in so that he was tightly squeezed between Amy on his left and Karen on his right. "It's a tight squeeze, Mom, but I think we all fit in back here," Kathy said. Penny and Janet were sitting next to Mrs. O'Connor up front, and they turned around to look at the 3 girls and Blake sitting in the back. The cramped conditions were comical, and they all began to laugh at the situation. Surrounded so closely by the 5 other girls and Mrs. O'Connor, Blake was entranced by the smell of the mingling perfumes and the feel of his hips and shoulders touching the girls on either side of him. "Our first stop has to be the bridal store to get Pamela fitted to her gown. After that, where do you girls think we should go?" Mrs. O'Connor said. "Where do you want to go first, Pamela?" Amy said. "I hadn't really thought about it, but I guess that we could start with buying some bras and things." "Very sensible. We'll work from the inside out." Karen laughed. Mrs. O'Connor backed the large car out of the driveway and proceeded down the road toward the mall, about 15 minutes away. After a minute they passed 2 boys walking on the side of the road, and Amy exclaimed, "Karen, there's Billy and Mike." She waved at them, who waved back after they recognized her. "God, Karen, Billy is just so cute. Look at that muscle shirt he wears to show off." "I know, I was just thinking, my God, is he sexy," Karen replied. "Oh, and can he kiss? At the fall dance he took me outside and I made out with him. I couldn't resist." "I know how you feel." Amy leaned over past Blake toward Karen, who leaned sideways to meet her. She cupped her hand over her mouth and whispered so that only Karen and Blake could hear, "He even took my hand and made me touch his penis." "You're kidding," Karen said. "No. He had unzipped his fly and my hand went right in his pants. It was all hard and poking out." Karen started to giggle, as did Amy. As Amy leaned back in her seat, she turned toward Blake and said, "You should have seen it. It seemed so big to me." Blake felt uneasy thinking of Billy's penis. "You weren't scared?" "Oh, no. Boys are always trying to do such stuff. I would never let him get any further unless I was going steady with him or something. Anyway, he's a senior and we're only friends." "I heard that Mike just broke up with Sharon," Kathy added. "Oh, really? Did he initiate it?" "No, Sharon just thought it wasn't getting anywhere and they ought to see other people. I wonder who he might be interested in now." "I think he is dreamy," said Janet. "All the girls are just going to die hoping that he asks them out." "Have you ever seen him run track in his cute little running uniform?" "I know what you mean. His thighs are so powerful. And I like the way he looks so intense as he approaches the finish line. He's the kind of boy that anyone would love to date. He makes a girl feel like a girl." The male side of Blake felt even more diminished. It was getting harder and harder to see himself as a boy. The only role open to him he could safely fill was being a girl. He had to be a girl. He was a girl. Boys were scary and overwhelming. He imagined Mike or Billy making him feel sexy and pretty, and hoping that they would want to make out with him someday. What was Billy's penis really like? He felt scared of it, but also exhilarated in a strange way. The girls must sense who he really is, just a rather shy and naive young girl. Looking down at his prominent breasts, feeling the long hair framing his face, aware of his fragrance, and the silky feeling of his pantyhose, the light delicate weight of his shoes and the tightness of his bra straps, Blake felt helpless being a girl. Compared to real boys, who were hard and fast and brash, he was a girl and he would have to try and live as much as possible as a girl. He imagined himself flirting with Mike or Billy, being coy and dressing sexy to turn them on. Maybe he was pretty enough to attract them? Wouldn't all the girls be envious of him? He could date one of them. After arriving at the mall, the girls-only club members and Mrs. O'Connor went to David's Bridal Heaven to have the gown originally made for Brad's cousin altered to Blake's size. Mr. David, the elderly owner of the store, greeted them enthusiastically at the door. While he chatted with Mrs. O'Connor, Blake wandered around admiring the many dozens of beautiful gowns hanging from racks and displayed on dummies. He gently ran his hand over the skirts, feeling the different soft nylon, satin, taffeta, and silk materials. Most of the dresses were in white, though quite a few were in pink, yellow, and soft shades of blue. The other club members gathered around him as he admired a white beaded gown worn by a statuesque mannequin who stared off into space. "Oh, Pamela is in heaven," Penny teased, "all these pretty gowns to wear. Do you see any you have just got to have?" Janet added, "I want all of them. But the one I have is the prettiest of all. Don't you agree?" "It sure is. Come, Pamela." Mrs. O'Connor called out, "Go to the dressing room and put on the dress so Mr. David can fit you." Blake took the box and walked toward the dressing room. Penny volunteered to go with him and help out. In the cubicle, Blake hung his purse on a hook and then proceeded to take off his top and skirt. Penny held the dress for him as he slipped it over his shoulders, and she zipped him up and then checked to make sure that everything was okay. He then walked out to the center of the large fitting room with mirrors on all the walls. Mr. David, Mrs. O'Connor, and the girls were waiting for him. My, aren't you a lovely young lady?" Mr. David said as he took Blake's hand and helped him to step up onto a small raised platform. "What's your name, dear?" "Pamela." "Well, Pamela, we don't have too much to do, just letting out a few seams here and there. You are a bit taller than the girl this dress was made for." Mr. David walked around Blake surveying the dress. He shifted the skirts around and pushed the bodice up and then back. Blake realized that Mr. David was doing more than just arranging the dress. He felt his breasts being squeezed and his nipples being pinched. Mr. David's hands were systematically caressing him as he worked. Mr. David reached under the dress and felt along the seams. Suddenly Blake felt a pinch and then a succession of explicitly sexual touches seemingly everywhere on his thighs and bottom. "Oh, such a pretty girl, Mr. David kept saying. Confused and afraid to cause a fuss, Blake smiled as if nothing was happening. After what seemed an eternity, Mr. David helped him down from the pedestal and then gave him a kiss on the cheek while simultaneously taking a last feel of his breasts, while ostensibly adjusting the dress. Blake felt like he had been violated, but was too scared to say anything. He held back tears as he walked to the dressing room to change. Penny noticed that he was upset and asked what had happened. When he had explained, she said, "What a dirty old man he is. I guess he couldn't resist touching such a sexy girl like you. You did look stunning up there." "Thank you, Penny. He made me feel so vulnerable. How can a girl ever hope to stop a boy or man from getting what they want? There are ways we can control them, Pamela, and we'll have to teach you them. Right now you are so innocent. It's really very precious. You did look absolutely lovely up there in that dress." Penny unzipped the back of the dress and helped Blake off with it. She hugged him and then gave him his skirt and top to put back on. From the wedding shop, the group walked over to the Lord and Taylor department store to look for bras, panties, and other lingerie. A saleswoman working there, Miss Celeste Taylor, knew Mrs. O'Connor and came over to help. "What can I do for you today, Mrs. O'Connor?" "Hi Celeste, we're taking Pamela here shopping for some bras and panties. She's new in town and would you believe it, the moving company lost a carton containing most of her clothes. We volunteered to help her get some replacement things while her parents are busy moving in." "Oh, you poor dear. Where would you like to begin? What kind and size of bra do you normally wear, Pamela?" "Thank you, ma'am. I guess I'm a size 36A, and I guess I'm not sure of exactly what kind I want. I mean, I guess I like back closure styles, and do you prefer pretty or dainty bras or the more athletic kind, you know, like the Jockey brand? I suppose I would like to get dainty ones. We have some pretty ones here that have a little padding. Would you like to look at those?" "Okay. I guess just a little padding would be nice. Do you have them in many colors? Come here and look." Blake wasn't sure he was saying the right things, but the girls didn't give him any indication that he was making a mistake. Karen called to him saying, "Come here, Pamela. This bra is so pretty. I think it's just the kind you like." She held up a pink lightly padded bra with lace-covered cups. "Oh yes, I like that one for sure. Oh, it's a Warner's lace dressing bra. It looks very comfortable." Then Penny and Amy both came up to him holding other bras in his size. "Look at these maiden-form bras, Pamela. This one is a nice shade of blue and this white one has a cute little applique flower at the center." Blake took them from the girls saying, "The blue one is a sweet nothings bra and this one is a chantilly bra. I love them both." Blake was surrounded by the many racks of bras. Every direction he looked there were bras of every size and description. He felt overwhelmed and did not know which way to turn next. "There are so many bras here, how do I decide what else to try?" Mrs. Taylor looked at Blake quizzically. "What did you do previously to get bras?" "Oh, we lived in a small town in western Maryland, and there weren't any department stores. So my mom and I would just go to a little local clothing store which didn't have such a selection as here." "Well then, this should be quite an experience for you. I see, Pamela, that you prefer lacy bras, so that narrows down our choices somewhat. Also, being an A cup, we don't have to look in that section over there which is for the full-figured ladies, like Mrs. O'Connor." "That reminds me of Celeste," Mrs. O'Connor said. "While I'm here I need to buy a few bras for myself. Pamela, you let Mrs. Taylor and girls help you out, while I go and take a look at some of the bras, okay? Sure, Mrs. O'Connor, go ahead. Mrs. O'Connor walked over to take a look at the larger-sized bras. Mrs. Taylor continued, our main decision now is whether you want to concentrate on padded bras or not. If you want some padding, we have some that would make you look like 8B cup, and others, like the Warner's one you are holding, will make you almost, but not quite 8B. Can I get some with padding and some without? Why, of course, Pamela. You're so innocent. Didn't the girls in your hometown or mom ever discuss these things with you? Blake was fearful that Mrs. Taylor was going to think that he wasn't a legitimate girl. Tears began welling up in his eyes as he felt more and more hopeless that he couldn't pull off the deception any longer. Mrs. Taylor saw Blake's alarm and said, oh, you poor dear. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. Just having Mrs. Taylor talk about him like this made Blake start to sob, and quickly Mrs. Taylor took him in her arms and held him. It's okay, we'll get you knowing everything there is to know about choosing bras. While she held him, she made a quizzical expression at the club members standing nearby. It's okay, Pamela, Karen said. This is why we are here, so we can help teach you about how to shop for your clothes in a large mall. When Blake's sniffling stopped, Mrs. Taylor suggested, come look over here at these, almost AB, bras by Playtex. See how they have padding like the Warners. Try one of these. She took one and then indicated some other bras nearby. The Vanity Fair lace piquant is very pretty, and so is the Maidenform satin seduction. She led Blake over to another rack containing bras which had very well-defined cups which stood almost rigidly in the shapes of breasts. These are heavily padded bras. They'll make you feel very womanly with a much larger bust. Let's try one of these also. What color would you like? Let me guess, I bet you want the pink one. Blake laughed a little and Mrs. Taylor said, see, bra shopping can be a lot of fun for girls. The boys just don't know what they are missing. All the girls laughed at this, including Blake. Now you have 5 bras to try on. Go to the fitting room over there and let's see which ones are most comfortable for you. They all walked over to the fitting rooms, where Mrs. O'Connor had just arrived carrying a couple of white bras. Let me see which bras you're going to try on, Pamela. Blake handed them to her. My, they are pretty ones indeed. What kind did you pick out, Mrs. O'Connor? These are some new Olga styles that I had seen in an advertisement, the lace ends smooth and the lace textures. Since I usually prefer Olgas, I thought I ought to try them out. I don't have any Olga bras here. Maybe I should try one too, since you like them so much. Sure, Pamela, Mrs. Taylor intervened. You start trying these on, and I'll go find a nice Olga bra in your size. Blake went into a fitting room and took off his top and then reached behind himself and unhooked the bra that Kathy had loaned him. His breasts still looked utterly natural, though he felt worried that maybe Mrs. Taylor would be able to tell they were false. He decided that he would try the Warner bra first. He put it on and looked at himself in the mirror. Even more so than Kathy's bra, the lightly padded lacy pink Warner's bra made him look extremely feminine. He heard Penny's voice outside the cubicle door say, "Come on out and show us how it looks." Summoning up his courage, he left the room to model the bra in front of the 5 girls and Mrs. Taylor, who had returned holding a soft yellow Olga bra. Just then Mrs. O'Connor left an adjoining cubicle wearing her bra to also look at Blake. Mrs. Taylor lightly adjusted the straps on Blake's bra and gently touched his breasts, checking how they fit into the cups. "It looks like a perfect fit to me," she said. "How does it feel?" "It feels great." I definitely must have this bra. You look very pretty, Mrs. O'Connor said. How do you like my bra? Mrs. O'Connor's very large bust completely filled the white Olga bra. I think it's gorgeous on you. Is it comfortable? Yes, it's snug without being tight. That's one of the secrets of getting the right bra. After wearing it for a while, you don't even know it's on. I feel like this Warner's was made for me, Blake exclaimed. Now I want to try on the Olga bra, Mrs. Taylor. She handed him the bra and he and Mrs. O'Connor went back into their changing rooms to switch bras. While in the dressing room, Blake slowly took off Warner's bra and delicately hung it up on a hook. He proceeded to put on the yellow Olga bra. Outside of the room, he heard the sound of some other customers going into other cubicles to try on bras. He then heard Mrs. O'Connor leave her cubicle and then the voice of Mrs. Taylor commenting on how nicely the second of the Olga bras appeared. This one is very nice also. You look very nice in it. He was about to step out of the room when he heard a woman say, "Why, Mrs. O'Connor? So nice to see you, and these must all be the lovely girls in the Girls Only Club. Have you met Blake's older sister Janice?" Blake froze as he realized that the voice of the woman on the other side of the door was his mother, and that Janice was with her. So nice to meet you, Janice, Mrs. O'Connor said. Thank you, Mrs. O'Connor. I like the bra you're wearing. That's a lace texture, which is the same new style that I want to try on. She held up a bra in her hands, and then walked to a nearby cubicle to try it on. Blake has been so excited about the chance to go to the wedding, Blake's mom continued. That reminds me, he left early this morning saying that he was going to the mall with you and the girls to get his suit for the wedding. He even gave up a chance to go to the ball game with his dad. I wonder where he is. Blake is waiting for us outside in the mall. He saw a friend of his, and since I needed to shop for a couple of bras, he preferred to wait outside. Oh, that's nice. Tell him hello from us anyway. Mrs. Taylor then called to Blake behind the door, Pamela, come on out and let us look at your Olga bra. Don't be shy. Blake was terrified. The more he hid inside the room, the more attention would be focused on him. He had no choice but to come out and try and look away from his mom and Janice. Stepping out of the room, he saw there was no way to avoid the gaze of his mom. She was standing right in front of him. He kept his head looking toward the ground. Oh, who is this pretty young girl? His mom said. I think I know all the other girls, but I don't seem to have seen you around town. This is Pamela, a new girl from the western part of the state, Mrs. O'Connor said. Blake looked up slightly and saw that his mom had extended her hand to shake his. He gently took her hand and curtsied while shaking it. That's a very pretty bra you have on, young ladies. You look beautiful in it, his mom said. Thank you, ma'am. At this moment, Janice came out of the dressing room wearing her Olga bra. Mom, what do you think? Very attractive, Janice. Yes, indeed, Mrs. O'Connor added. I am so happy this new Olga style seems to be really a winner. Both of you ladies look exquisite, Mrs. Taylor said. Janice and Mrs. O'Connor stood next to each other, both wearing the same style bra. Blake's small chest seemed petite and juvenile in comparison. Have you met Pamela? She's new in town, Blake's mom said to Janice. Pleased to meet you, Janice said, and then she let out a small gasp as she looked fully at Blake. What's the matter, Janice? Blake's mom said. Janice was staring directly into Blake's eyes, which were widened with fear. Oh, nothing, Mom. I thought I saw a mouse. It was just a moving shadow or something. Blake turned away suddenly, saying, "I guess I should try on my next bra," and turned to go back inside his cubicle. "Wait a minute, young lady," Mrs. Taylor said. "Let's see how this bra fits you." She gently took Blake's arm and turned him around so he was facing everyone. "The straps need a bit of adjusting. We just pull up a little on these little buckles. There, how's that?" "It fits nicely, Mrs. Taylor." "Are you shy about these other ladies seeing you in your bra?" she asked. "I guess so." "How precious you are, Pamela," Blake's mom said. "It's so refreshing to meet a shy and modest girl. Young girls today are too brassy, in my opinion. You have nothing to fear from us. You have such a pretty young body and you look so good in that bra. I wish my younger daughter would only act as feminine as you." "Thank you, ma'am." Blake turned and went back into the cubicle where he sat down and started to shake with fear. He was certain that Janice had recognized him. She had been suspicious about his liking to cross-dress, and somehow she had seen through his disguise. What was going to happen next? He prayed that she wouldn't let his mom know. It would be the end of everything. "Come on, Mom," Janice said, "we had better go, or we'll be late getting back." "I'll buy 2 of these Olga bras," she said to Mrs. Taylor. Mrs. O'Connor and the girls said their goodbyes. After he heard Janice and his mom leave, he quietly began to sob. He heard Mrs. Taylor say to Mrs. O'Connor, "Is Pamela having any problems? Can you check on her?" He saw the door of the cubicle open and Mrs. O'Connor came in, still wearing her new Olga bra. "You poor girl. It did look like Janice recognized you. Do you think she will tell your mom?" As she said this, she sat down next to Blake and put her arms around him. "I hope not. She may not. I think she won't. The other day she was talking to me about boys who cross-dress and was saying that she didn't mind if they did. She'll probably want to talk to me when I get home, though." That's all for now. See you in the next video. Till then, take care. Oh yes, please like and subscribe to my channel. And also share your feedback, it really means a lot to me.